We're going to start with a quick about Metrigy and Cresta. We will go into a little bit on spending. We'll talk about human-centric AI and then look at people versus technology and talk a little bit about what do you need? Humans, AI, both, neither? Well, and then human-centric impact on staffing and management. And then we'll just talk about success and wrap up after that. Okay. So just real quickly about Metrigy, for those of you who don't know us, our name says a lot about who we are. It's just a combination of two words, metrics and strategy. So we go out and we conduct a lot of research with ITCX and business unit leaders and asking all sorts of questions about what they, who they use, what they're spending money on, what are the challenges, their inhibitors, all sorts of questions. And you'll see some of that data here. But I think the most important thing is just being able to track success metrics. How is the use of any sort of technology affecting metrics like revenue and cost and CSAT and efficiency, employee efficiency, things like that. So that's a little bit about us as a company. And Devon, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Yeah, thank you so much. So as Beth mentioned, I'm Devon Mychal. I lead product marketing here at Cresta and wanted to just quickly introduce our organization as well. Cresta is a unified platform for human and AI agents, and we have solutions spanning conversation intelligence, real-time agent assistance and augmentation, as well as fully automated virtual agents. Our customers typically use Cresta to uncover insights about their customers and the behavioral best practices that drive better conversations with them. They use us to automate conversations and to automate away inefficient processes within the contact center at all levels. And they use us to empower their human teams to work smarter and faster. So it's our mission to unlock the true potential of the contact center with human-centric AI, which is why I'm so excited about this topic today. It's really great. And we've had the privilege of helping a lot of the world's leading organizations do just that, from United Airlines to Verizon to Fortune 10 health systems. So I'm going to share some perspectives and stories from our customers as we go along as well.
Yeah, those are always great to hear those stories because it brings all the things that we talk about to life.
Absolutely.
Okay. So before I jump into the research, I just want to explain, because I always get this question, what do we mean when we say our research success group? So when we do any research study, we ask a series of questions that helps us to determine whether a company is successful with what they're doing with technology or whether they're maybe not successful or not quite as successful as others. So in this particular study, we asked a lot of questions around percentage of excellent customer experiences, success of their CX transformation project, how AI impacted specifically revenue and CSAT, operational costs, employee efficiency, supervisor time for things like QM and coaching. We take all these answers and, essentially use sort of like a point methodology and calculate the average across each of these areas. Anyone who's at or above average, we just kind of flag the record for that particular data point as success or non-success. And then in the end, for this particular study, they needed to have at least 3.3, which rounds up to 4. They needed to have at least 4 of these areas checked as sort of successful. And then they were put into our overall success group for the entire study or the non-success group. And then from there, we can compare and contrast what companies who are measurably successful, way more than the other group, what are they doing versus the others? And how does that basically help you as an enterprise organization determine your strategy, when it comes to CX? So you'll see that as we go throughout. So when I talk about the success group, this is what it means. Okay. So let's start just at high level looking at spending. And when I think we can learn a lot about any given technology based on what companies are spending on it. First of all, spending on both CX in general and AI for CX, significantly increasing. More than 80% of companies are increasing their spending this year in these technologies. You can see that successful companies in both of them are spending more per employee than the non-success group. It doesn't have to be that way. I mean, there are certain technologies where successful companies are actually spending less. That's one of the reasons they're more successful, is they figured out a way to save money. CX, that's not ever the case in any research I've ever done on this. Investment always tends to equal success. Now, maybe we'll get to a point at someday where it does. I don't know, but every year we see that successful companies are definitely spending more. On average, about 13.7 million. And it just depends on the size of the company. Obviously, there's a big range there. But that's what we're seeing in terms of spending now. When we look at that spending, especially in AI for CX, we always want to look at, well, what about, like Emma was talking about earlier, you can fully automate a transaction or you can augment a human in a transaction. So think a lot of people pit those against each other. Should we automate or should we augment? And what we see in our research is you don't have to pit them against each other. In fact, they coincide very well together. When you look at spending on, for example, virtual assistants on the left and agent assist or copilot, whatever term you use on the right, the spending increases are about the same. They're pretty substantial. The percentage of companies that have planned to increase their spending in 2024, when we do a study in February, this is how many were going to increase their spending, what was driving that, recognizing the efficiencies that AI brings, huge, 75%,
Mhm.
sees that, increasing revenue. And lack of pressure, I don't think that's a great reason to spend money. It might be a great reason to look at a technology, but you don't want to spend money just because your competitors are. You want to spend it because it makes sense for your organization. You've got business problems or opportunities that technology can solve. And then also just like, reducing employee turnover. And before we get out of this section, Devin, I wanted to just ask you what you think, why you think spending in these areas is increasing so significantly. Is it really consistent in what you're seeing with your customers, which are mostly larger companies?
Yeah, it is consistent. I think we've seen a significant acceleration, and just like it shows up in your data, we're seeing it on
Mhm.
both sides of this aisle, if you will. And I mean, I think the fundamental reason is we've entered a new phase of AI adoption, if you will. For a long time, there was this hype cycle around AI in the contact center and all the amazing things it would do, but the results were pretty underwhelming for
Right.
years and years and years. I think that's changed in the last
Mhm.
18 to 24 months. And companies are now seeing the technology has jumped forward with large language models. It's making new things possible, and it's unlocking a lot of that promise that we've been talking about for so long. It's becoming a reality. So companies are running a pilot. They're seeing fantastic results, and they're committing because they want to scale those results across their business. And I think the reason you see this sort of pretty even split is also because companies
Yeah.
now are starting to move beyond point solutions. They're starting to look at the potential synergies between these two things. And there's a lot of them. I won't wax on that right now, and we'll have opportunity to
Yeah.
talk about that later. But they're starting to look for systems that combine these two things and can help them make this dual investment side by side.
Yeah, like you said, the large language models, the generative AI has really, really changed the game, I think, with AI and CX, just with the use cases we see, the success metrics that we see as well.
Yep.
So let's talk a little bit about what we mean here by, human-centric AI. Where does it come into play? When we looked at this from a research perspective, we wanted to ask companies how interactions were being handled when they came into the contact center and touched AI. So this isn't every interaction that comes in. We just wanted to see what the split was between, sort of the automation, the full automation, and then the sort of copilot agent assist. So don't take this to mean that like of all my transactions that are coming into the contact center, over half are in copilot. That's not what we're saying. We're just saying what's the split of those that do use AI right now. And you can see a little bit more using that copilot, that human assisted versus full automation. And basically,
Mhm.
full automation, what we mean by that, customer typically starts in like a voice bot or a chat bot. They say what they need, and it can be fully resolved without going to human. Pretty straightforward. On the Copilot side, they can start in that same way, and then AI decides, oh, wait, you need to go to a live agent and transfers over. Or maybe they just call in and an agent answers. They don't have to go through any sort of triage bot or anything like that or check in. But the thing that's happening in the background that the customer may not know, typically doesn't know, is that the agent has, this little assistant kind of sitting there, and helping the agent solve the problem. So that's really, kind of what we see there. And I don't know how much this split will change over the years. Now, as we look forward, a lot of people kind of think that full automation is going to take over moving forward. And they've been saying that for a long time. Um, I don't know how much I agree with that, but Devin, what do you think? I mean, where do you see that split changing over the next few years? Will it
Yeah.
stay like this? Is it going to be a 50-50? Do you see one really taking off?
So I think two things. One, I think every interaction that touches a human will have some form of augmentation or
Agree.
copilot
Agree.
influencing it sooner than we think, to be
Yep.
honest.
Yep.
At this stage, when our customers get their hands on this technology, they're very quickly rolling it out across their entire interaction volume because they're
Mhm.
just seeing great results. But I do think that the percentage of interaction volume that's capably handled by virtual agents will continue to rise. I think they're getting better. And I actually don't think that's not human-centric AI, because I think the new world of virtual agents or chatbots or whatever you want to
Mhm.
call them, i- they're able to learn from humans and sort of mimic the behavior of your best performing humans and continue to optimize based on those human interactions. So they're becoming
Of
more
course.
human. But I think there will always be a reasonable percentage of your interactions that you don't want to be handled by a virtual agent or agentic AI, right? You still want that human relationship, and you want the ability for that human to make judgment calls and, do things like upsell or cross sell, and find ways to drive revenue for the business. So I do think that even if it's possible, it won't be in the best interests of business to try to go for that 100% full on.
Right. And I just think you talked about humans still being involved in full automation by helping, teach and train AI. They're also kind of, some companies just have humans, managing the virtual agent in a way that
Mm,
they see if a virtual agent is getting off track, kind of getting them back on track for the,
right.
early term of their learning, so you do see some of that happening as well. Um, as we look at Agent Assist itself, we see a few real key use cases, like, how they're how CX is, or how Agent Assist is actually guiding CX. 62% say that they're getting advice from AI and to respond to any sort of
Mhm.
inquiry or question. 57% see customer sentiment in real time. I don't like this one as an agent. If I'm an agent, I don't want to see like trend line as I'm talking going up or down, like that would kind of really distract me. As a supervisor, though, this is awesome. I'd love to see all
Yes.
the agents and what's happening. That type of analytics is really going to go a long way to improving quality. 56% say that Agent Assist is giving them context to personalize a customer interaction. I think that's one area where we see our success group really taking off, by the way. They want to make
Nice.
more and more, personalized, contextualized interactions, and they're relying on AI for that. And then the other one that we see here, about 49%, just getting permission for offers to keep an unhappy customer. So, oh, I have a customer on the line that's going to lead. The last thing I want to do is say, could you hold it? I'll go check with my supervisor
Sure.
and see if there's something we can do for you. And that's how still a lot of companies operate. But if I
Yeah.
can, basically have AI give me a screen pop based on, everything that AI has learned that we can do, that we're allowed to do, that might really help keep that customer reduced churn. Do you see any other use cases, Gavin, with your customers where they're using agent assist?
Yeah, I mean, we're definitely seeing all of these. I think the big
Mm,
one that's maybe missing from this list that a lot of our customers are doing is live note taking and summarization. It's seeing significant adoption. The tools out there are getting pretty good at it, and so that's an efficiency driver, right? It reduces the time required for after call work.
yeah.
I think you can also improve CX and agent performance because it frees up the agent to concentrate more on the customer, right?
Yeah.
No, that they're not taking notes. And in some industries that we work with, large public insurance companies and banks, and the agents are required to take copious notes throughout. And so we've trained these models now to be able to deliver custom summaries that extract very specific entities very,
Mm,
very accurately. And the agent doesn't really need to take notes at all. They can just verify that information, and then push it forward. And what we've seen in testing at scale is that these summaries are actually better than what the agent produces 9 out of 10 times, right? So you're getting a higher quality of data, you're getting an agent that's more focused on the customer, and you're getting a shorter call typically. So there's a lot of advantages there. The other sort of more emergent area, I would say, that we're working on with some of our customers and seeing adoption for is automation of like on-call workflows for the agent. So the AI recognizes that the customer is asking to do something that involves another business system, and it can take that action for the agent, just like
yeah.
full automation would. Now, the human is still providing your sort of channel, if you will, to communicate with the customer, but the AI is taking action in the back end. And I think that's going to continue to advance quickly. We're working on ways to actually do that locally at the screen level for a lot of our customers, and just help that agent go fully hands free. So they're not taking notes, they're not taking actions, they're focused on the customer, and everything's just happening in the background like a beautiful symphony.
And it's funny, as you were saying that, I wrote on my note here, focus. Like, I love how what you're talking about is giving the agents the opportunity to really stay engaged, really focus, because, I know all of us, we're taking notes on calls, and your brain can only do
Yeah.
so many things. So if I don't have to worry about those notes, I can really stay focused on the customer. In the back of my brain now, I'm thinking of other things I can do for that customer and,
Right.
maybe things I should be saying that I wouldn't have thought about if I was too busy taking notes. So I really
Totally.
do like that.
Yeah, and
And
you're active listening and
well,
you're doing
right.
less context switching as well. So I think it's a good
Yeah.
thing, and it makes the job more enjoyable. I did see on your list that retention aspect of the
Mhm.
benefits that they're looking at. I think that's one of the ways that these tools help retention.
Yeah.
Is make the job a little bit less brain frazzling, if you will, lack of a better word.
Right. And we see actually that after call time, the savings that we're seeing in our research is about 35% savings in after call work. I think that can just keep getting better and better as more learning happens within AI. That was the data point we had from I think it was February of last year, but that was a good one.
Yep.
I think it's gonna keep getting better. Now, when we look at the other side, let's look at AI virtual agents. And I do think they're making the mark. We asked
Mhm.
organizations if their contact center supervisors consider those virtual agents, whether they're voice or chat, to be part of the contact center workforce for scheduling and capacity planning. You can see about 34% already do now. That little star there is just an indication of our research success group. That's where the research success group is now. You have another 30% saying, "Yep, we'll have this view in the future." So the majority of companies are basically saying, when I look at my contact center sort of team, I'm looking at my people, I'm looking at my virtual agents, and what do I need when I'm doing scheduling? What skill sets do I need? What training do I need? What certifications do I need? All that comes into play. And then we also ask companies, what do we see? What do you think is going to be the total percentage of the workforce that will be AI, virtual agents by the end of 2025? And it was 31%. So, actually not like specifically like little people standing there, but if you look at, I guess the caliber to full, because your total capacity of what you have to do,
Yeah.
about 31% is basically going to be handled by virtual agents by the end of 2025. When we look at a success group, they're up to almost 40%. So they're being much more bullish on this. They're really forging ahead with using more and more virtual agents in the non-success group. So I know we're going to
Yeah.
talk about this in a minute, but I want to ask you, Devin, just kind of as a precursor of what we're going to get into next. Um, do you think virtual agents, virtual AI agents are ever going to like take over human agents?
No, I think it's similar to my answer from before. I don't think they'll
Yeah.
fully take over, but I do agree that this is going to continue to increase. And I think thinking about it as part of your workforce is the right way to think about it, right? There are times where you're going to have less human agents available. These are available 24/7. There'll be
Right.
times of the year where you might need way more human agents than you need, at any other time for just like 2 months. And it's extremely costly to staff them, and they don't perform as well because they have to be trained so quickly and they're not your standard staff. So put your AI workforce to work on a larger percentage of your interactions during that time period. So I think it gives you a lot of operational scalability, and you can
Yes.
decide when and where to use them. And that's what we really advise our clients, is to think across your AI workforce, across your human workforce being augmented by AI. Optimize for the business outcome. Don't think about automation as a goal in and of itself. Optimize for the best outcome for your business.
So true. And that last point is deserves to be emphasized. Like, do this as a you know success for your business. Don't just do it for the sake of doing the technology. And I will tell you, I talk to companies where that is why they're doing it. They get word from up high saying we need to be doing this. They don't know why. All our competitors are doing it. No, that's not why you do it. But
Right. And there's a lot of benefits on both sides, but I think the key is, keep that in mind. What's your silver star here to go after? Yeah.
problem are you solving? What opportunity are you addressing? And
Yep.
then measure it. Okay. So let's talk about what the research says then about what's more important, people or technology. So we asked companies, if you look over on the left first, though both are important, what's most important to delivering successful customer interactions, people or technology? And you can see overwhelmingly 72% said people. People are more important. But now look over at that bar chart in the main part of the slide here. The purple represents our research success group, and the blue is the non-success group. I was fascinated by this when I saw this actually, because if you look at those purple bars, they're approaching 50-50 right now. And if I looked at some of our interview notes for this, we interview and survey companies, and I looked at some of the interview notes, um, the point was basically technology is so good, and we're applying it so well to our people that our people are getting measurably better. So
Yep.
therefore technology is better. Like technology rather is more important. Like if we didn't have the technology we're using, we didn't have the agent assist that we're using, our people would not be as good. So it's kind of like that. It could be a what comes first, chicken and the egg kind of scenario, but we didn't have the people or the technology, we wouldn't have the people being as good as they are. And when we asked
Yes.
them, sir, what are those reasons? What are the technology changes you made to improve customer service? Number one, better use of AI. And that's the research success group correlation. The little star there shows us that. The other success group correlation, by the way, is better voice of the customer program. So how about those two are hand in hand? We see it in a couple other questions that we asked throughout the study. We're going to use AI and then we're going to measure whether it's going well through our voice of the customer program. We want to make sure that what we're doing is resonating with our customers. We don't want
Hmm.
to, like we are just talking about, we don't want to just do it for the sake of doing it. If you look at the little box to the right, 30, almost a third more selected better voice of the customer program in our research success group than our non-success group. In other areas, of course, that were important, you're improving the knowledge base. You have to have good data, good knowledge, more proactive outreach to customers. AI is really helping there, by the way. And then form integration as well. So, those are some of the things that we saw really happening there. So
Hmm.
Devin, it's a tough one because if you like most companies would say, well, both are important. We need both. But you end up, where would you what's more important? Where would you focus more of your spending on the people themselves or on the technology that's making the
Yeah.
better? What do you think is more important?
Well, I'm not going to fully take the bait, Robin. Our view is that human and AI empower each other. It sounds a little bit cliche, but I honestly think it's really true. I understand why that success group is starting to approach that
Yeah.
50-50 point of view, because the technology now is such a point of leverage on your people. It can make those people exponentially more effective. It can make less people as effective as a previously much larger group of people, particularly when you look at like supervisors and management and the QM function, which we'll talk about a little bit later. I think it is a huge point of leverage for empowering those people to not only do more work, but to do better work. So I see why it's increasing in importance, but I am not going to go ahead and say that it's fundamentally more important. I think you need to start with good people that understand the technology, that are empowered with it and know how to use it. And then you can make them exponentially better at what they do. And I think like VOC is a great example. I'm glad that's up here on the slide as well. It's one of those areas where like historically we've relied a lot on a pretty cumbersome process to capture like the voice of the customer, if you will. There's surveys going out and they're getting, pretty low response
Yeah.
rates, and it's often a biased sample, right? And then there's a
Right.
lot of time consuming manual analysis of actual customer calls where you're getting more of that unstructured feedback. Um, and I think with the right people empowered by the right technology, you can completely change that, right? You don't really need to rely on those surveys nearly as much. And you can start to ask that data set of your conversations open-ended questions, right? And just get a clear answer about what's happening in the business. So you take what would be hundreds of hours of manual work to answer a
Oh,
question that will help you make a decision. And it happens in the snap of a finger. So
yeah.
then you can spend more time on what do I do about that answer? And that's still going to be people for now, for the most part. It's a fascinating question. I'm curious to see how this changes in your data over time, but
Yeah, we're
I'm going to
we're
plead the
changing
fifth
this.
on picking one.
No, definitely we tracking the identity voice of the customer is really increasingly some of our other data shows influenced by, inferred sentiment. So using AI to basically say, here's what somebody would have said if they had answered your post interaction survey. And we're seeing those models do a pretty good job, 85 to 95% accurate. So I think it helps companies when they're trying to make decisions based on the customer input to actually make those decisions based on some pretty reliable data.
Yeah.
Quite. So let's look a little bit more, drill down a little bit more on humans, AI, or both. Like, where do we need to be? And I want to start by just, we have some kind of interesting questions here in the research about, what's the biggest value of using live agents over virtual agents, and then vice versa. So we asked this question, like number one was showing empathy to customers. The live agents are going to be more empathetic. They're going to think and reason better than virtual agents, at least at this point. Some may argue that AI will someday be able to think and reason better. Some may argue that it already
Mhm.
does. Um, and then doing a good job with upsell. That's where our success group is. The success group is really bullish right now on using AI, even in a service call, to do upsell cross sell. So give me a prompt on something to offer this customer that they might find more of. And this is going exceptionally well, by the way. It's a really, really good, we'll talk a little bit more about that, but this is a really good area for using
Yeah.
AI right now. Um, Now on the flip side, what's the biggest advantage of using virtual agents over live agents? The top answer for people is really that they look at their virtual agents as being able to have knowledge of every interaction at the company. Um, they're less, and that's really success group is. They're less expensive. They have no emotion. So they get angry, and human nature, we do get angry. They don't require breaks. Live agents are getting a lot more breaks now than they used to because what they're doing is more complex. They don't have those simple "What's your overnight mailing address?" question thing that's handled by AI. So every call they have, their brain has to kind of work overtime and they need more breaks. But
Yep.
we have a little knowledge of every interaction with the company is kind of interesting because, in some ways, it's not like, okay, what are you doing today? It's kind of like, philosophically, what do you see as the best advantages of using virtual agents
Yeah.
over live agents? So are you guys seeing, that it's possible at this point for AI to have knowledge of every single interaction? How can that happen? When do you see that happen if it's not already? Are
Yeah.
we doing what it takes now to have their agents be that knowledgeable, or is that more futuristic?
I think it is very much happening now. It's without getting too far into the technical details, you don't want this like happening in real time where the model is constantly retraining itself. Like you want to take sort of snapshots of things, but on the virtual agent side, as well as on the models that power agent assist, we're training those models on the body of historical conversations. And we're looking at what's happening in those conversations, as well as the outcome of those conversations to dictate what those models are recommending and doing, whether that's directly through a virtual agent or a chatbot, or in terms of what it's prompting to the human agent. So I think in both cases, the model can have knowledge of every interaction, every past interaction at the company, and use that to get really, really good at recommending the right things at the right time. Um, Interestingly, I was chuckling a bit at the last slide where the number one reason to use human agents was empathy. I think our virtual agents and agentic AI can get really good at this in the next 12 to 18 months. And similar to it not needing to take breaks, and it also is it's not going to be subject to sort of the emotional shortcomings of humans or just people who don't care that much. Right? You can train it if it can recognize scenarios where it needs to show empathy and it's expressive enough to do so. It can be empathetic. Now, there's probably the philosophical question of, do you care if a AI model is being empathetic towards you? I don't know. That's a different question, but I think some of these will move around between as the technology continues to advance.
It's interesting. Like the consumers will say, yeah, well, if a voice bot is being empathetic to me, I don't care because I know it's not legitimate. Like I know it's not fair. Like if a person's saying that, like I feel that kind of thing. Now when it comes to tech, there are still there. It's increasing the number of consumers who say they can't tell the difference between whether they're talking to a live agent or a bot in text. So in text, that might make more of a difference
Yeah.
in voice. All that said, too, voice is getting a lot better. You still can kind of tell the difference between a voice bot and a live person, but the progress that's being made there is
Yep.
pretty rapid and pretty.
It's getting close. It's getting
Uh,
really close. I
uh,
think you don't want to try to trick people though, but
I agree.
having it not be grading like those artificial voices makes the whole thing more, a better interaction for the customer.
We ask consumers whether they want to know if they want to know whether they're using AI. 90%, 92% actually are like, yes, tell us, don't tell
Yeah.
them fools. So you're absolutely right on that. Consumers don't want that. But it's kind of interesting. We're talking about voice versus text, bot basically, or AI enabled virtual agents. And you can see now that still the higher percentage of companies are using text versus voice when it comes to any sort of AI type agent. It's the blue bar there. And that's where Cresta Fest is on both of those. But you do see a little bit more growth in the voice bot area for going, in 2024 by the end of this year than you do in chatbots. And I think a lot of that really does have to do with generative AI and its ability to understand and produce content right away. And then, like we're just talking about, the voice being a little bit better than it used to be. It doesn't sound like an IBA, like or an NVIDIA. Doesn't sound like an IBR. It's a little bit different. Um, so I want to talk a little bit about voice just as a communications, means. So it's kind of interesting when we look at our data. About 77% of all interactions at this point still use voice, either initially or as an escalation. So if you look at the line chart in the middle there, that blue line shows the percentage of interactions on average that start in a channel other than voice. And that first year was 2020. We're in the middle of COVID, and people were really trying to figure out some way to get into the company. It dropped a bit, and now it's going up again. It's up to 50% again this year. One of the problems, of course, is you got that green line, which is the percentage of interactions that are resolved in the non-voice channel, and it's going down. And there's a few reasons for that. It could simply be, raw numbers. It could also be the fact that you've got people going into the voice channel and they shouldn't be. It's just
Hmm.
into a non-voice channel rather, and they shouldn't be. It's not. It's like they're not being smart about when they need to go into voice and data.
Yeah.
What's really important and kind of crucial here is we asked organizations, do you believe AI is making it easier for agents to support and resolve voice calls? And you can see almost half say it does now. Our success group well over, and then another 37% planning to do so in the future. So we asked, well, as a result of those efficiency improvements, is AI driving more of your company's calls to voice? And look at those numbers, like 36% already doing it now, 47%, already in the future. So it's like,
Mhm.
we're almost coming full circle here, and everyone's talking about
Yeah.
AI aiming as many interactions as possible. Now we see it making humans so good that triage bots are kind of routing more to voice. I mean, what do you think of this, moving forward?
Yeah, it's definitely interesting. I think to your point on the last slide, I do think there was a period where there was a narrative that everything's going to move to digital. Like the younger generation prefers digital, voice is going to be dead, and companies really really liked that narrative because chat and digital are cheaper channels. Right, so they were kind of like hearing what they wanted to hear to a certain degree as sort of that digital native narrative came out. And your data kind of just rips the Band-Aid right off that narrative, right? People really like voice. They like to get on the phone and get things done. And I think that narrative is going away. And what you're seeing here is companies now catching up and seeing we can make voice cost effective by using AI. More of the voice interaction can be handled well and triaged, and steps can be taken through voice virtual agents.
Right.
And then humans can take on a smaller chunk of that call, and they can be more effective and more efficient in that chunk that they're taking on. So voice suddenly starts to come closer to the cost of digital channels in terms of cost to serve. When
Great
people
point.
prefer it. So we're converging back to, I think, a good equilibrium where company strategy meets consumer preference instead of it was divergent before.
Yeah, and I mean, the kind of back of another kind of really interesting data point we're seeing about average handle time. So when you think about average handle time and using agent assist, right? Let's say it would normally take me 12 minutes to solve a problem on a call, and now I've started using agent assist, and it's only taking me 7 minutes. What were companies doing with that? Well, that extra 5 minutes, they were just getting on the next call, the next call, the next call, and that was working well for companies that had a lot of volume coming in, but those who didn't have an increased volume, they started laying off their agents. And some CX pretty quickly realized this is not sustainable. We don't want to do this. So what should we be doing? What are we missing here? And the thing
Yeah.
that they were missing that they're adding on right now is that, okay, yes, we can decrease the amount of time it's going to take us to solve a problem with agent assist, right? But
Yeah.
now let's do something more. Let's do something better. Let's do an upsell. Let's have agent assist come in
Yeah.
and get screen pop like I was talking about before, and do upsell. So now that call maybe that call that would have before taken me 12 minutes to solve the problem now takes me 12, 13, 14, even 15 minutes, but I'm solving the problem, and I've got another goal on that call, which is, making a sale. So now I'm bringing revenue into the company. So I've always
Yes.
wondered about this. I mean, will average handle time become an irrelevant metric moving forward? And what do you
I don't think it will ever become totally irrelevant. I mean, it is so tied to your cost structure in terms of the workforce that you construct and your salaries. And that's such a big piece of the operational budget. So I don't think it'll become totally irrelevant. I think your point is spot on. Companies will start to realize that they want to reduce the pieces of it that are lower value and then fill some of that time with higher value activities. Now, here's the kicker, I think. This service to sales concept that you're talking about, adding upsell and revenue generating activity, AI can unlock that without having to spend on sort of the higher skill, harder to hire, harder to retain sales talent that was typically being used. So in most organizations that we talked to 3 years ago, they had a completely separate team for service and a completely separate team for sales. And in the rare
Right.
instances where
Right.
the service team correctly identified an opportunity, it was a transfer situation. And then you had a more expensive person that was handling the sales opportunity. Now, with AI guiding service people and giving them behavioral guidance based on proven techniques, and sort of prompting them through things like discovery and objection handling and the negotiation phase, your service talent can effectively sell. And that is a pretty big shift in sort of the composition and salaries that you think about allocating to both of these things. And that change might actually outweigh the slight increase you see in average handle time in and of itself, not even considering the benefit of the revenue. So I think there's a lot of things at play here. It will become less important, but not completely irrelevant.
Fine. I think that's fair. All right. So let's move on here and talk a little bit about an area that I think is very, very interesting, and that's like sort of the impact on staffing, compensation management, things like that.
Mhm.
First of all, just a few things. 71% of companies are in fact hiring agents with more skills and experience than they have in the past. What's driving that? Well, the top thing is new products require different expertise. AI is handling the basic questions now. So of course, it's like by default, CX initiatives that the agents are handling are getting more complex, but they're also just getting more complex in general because, like I said, we had sales, goals and things
Yeah.
like that. And about 54% of companies, by the way, have sales goals attached to their service agents. So this is something that, that's really happening. Sales quotas, they require different expertise. Maybe I want to hire somebody who has some sales background. And then lastly, we're trying to reduce attrition. We talked a little bit about that. You mentioned that earlier as one of the benefits. I think our data earlier also mentioned that's one of the reasons why people spend on AI. Um,
Mhm.
so when we look at what's happening with agents today, 77% of them are handling these complex issues, either all or most of the time. Now, 5% of companies saying, that's really no impact. We're good. We got this covered. But most companies have issues. Either their turnover rate is rising. That's where our success group is. Agents are struggling with burnout. They require more breaks. Um, CSAT scores are dropping, revenue's dropping. And, so when we ask what's going on here, well, how do you address all these issues that are happening because of this complexity? Um, Basic AI stuff, HR stuff like, flexible scheduling, work from home. They're definitely getting more pay. The pay is going up with contact center agents and maybe more vacation time, definitely more breaks. But the one I want to highlight is the success group correlation there, the star, using agent assist to resolve those customer issues more efficiently. So that's really where we see the success group honing in,
Yeah.
the leading indicator. Others are going to follow. Any examples you can share with us of customers who have used agent assist to sort of help
Yeah.
this lead?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's one customer story I really like to tell for this type of concept around efficiency because it's Brinks Home. It's one of the largest home security providers in the United States, and what they've done is they've made the individual interaction more efficient by reducing handle time and automating some of those processes that agents have to do, and serving up knowledge so they're not digging through knowledge bases and advanced troubleshooting and things like that. But where they've really seen a very, very significant efficiency gain and cost reduction is they've used AI, specifically our agent assist solutions, to reduce transfers. And so
Uh,
they were transferring some like 30% of calls before Cresta. Now they're transferring
wow.
8%. And that is a
Wow.
complete transformation in terms of their own operational efficiency as well as customer satisfaction,
Mhm.
because customers hate to be transferred around.
Right.
And it ties back to that issue of like complexity, right? If we can make more agents able to handle more types of issues and more complex
Right.
issues, both efficiently and well, you don't need to transfer. And so Brinks has implemented a program that they call the Universal Agent Program, where they're not using all these myriad of skill groups and assignments anymore. They're equipping one set of agents to solve all of their problems and using
Mhm.
AI to empower them to do so very effectively. And it's just had magnificent results. I think the last metric I saw was that their NPS increased by 30 points, Robin. I mean, it's almost like hard to
Wow.
believe, but they put this data out there. So believe it.
That's awesome. Yeah. I love seeing use cases like that, honestly, because it really does just make everything more real. It's like, okay, this is real. Companies are really using it. It really is working. Um, In fact, we're also seeing a lot of good benefits for supervisors. So we asked how their supervisors use AI, and you can see quality management, scheduling and capacity planning, coaching and training, kind of the big ones there.
Yep.
But when we see what they're actually saving, so quality management, 3 hours per week per supervisor. I mean, that really starts adding up. Scheduling and
Yeah.
capacity planning, 2 hours per week per supervisor. The big one, though, is coaching and training, 11 and a half hours per week in coaching and training. So we think about supervisors spending a lot of their time just, you're really doing that coaching, doing that training, and being able to have AI do some of it. So, if an agent, I'm going to get a screen pop and do some coaching with what AI is sending me. How did I perform this morning? Where was my week? What was my CSAT score? Things like that. That's great. But also having AI help the supervisor when they do those live agent sessions. So if, for
Yep.
example, it can cross over to QM, if I have AI looking into my QM for me, um, that's going to be pretty helpful for me as a supervisor. I can see now almost every, call that every agent's been on with the summary and some links to, um, you know, links to calls and things like that. So, I mean, when I kind of predict that supervisor benefits are going to be increasingly important, and that's something
Yep.
we're really focusing on in our research in 2025 is looking more at these supervisor benefits. And I just want to kind of get some of your thoughts on this.
Yeah, absolutely. I was really glad to hear that, by the way, because this is
Yeah.
an area that we've spent a lot of time on in developing our product, developing our point of view, and it's
Yeah.
an area where our customers are seeing a lot of value. And so the time savings are great. In our customer base, typically we're seeing customers reduce the cost and time spent on QM and coaching activities by over 50%. So a full 50% reduction in the resourcing required, the time spent to actually administer the existing program. But
Wow.
what we're starting to see as a result of that and all of this, time savings and tooling that they're getting from AI solutions across coaching and QM is just a rethinking of what these programs even need. And so with new conversational intelligence tools that go way beyond keywords and phrase tracking and things like that, and actually can sort of pinpoint contextual behavior and then tie that behavior to KPI outcomes, our customers are using AI to go ahead and actually identify the agent behaviors and tactics and best practices in
Yeah.
conversations in different scenarios that actually work. And so you're no longer just saying, I have this 35 criteria scorecard that's been used for 20 years and it's the right way to do a call. And we're going to fill that out on 3% of calls. We are now saying these 7 behaviors are the strongest correlated to this outcome we're trying to drive in this type of interaction. AI is going to score all of those for us. They're going to tell us every single agent what percentage they did or didn't do them when they should have, and how we need to coach those agents. And so it's freeing up an immense amount of time. It's showing you what works. And then the people are going and spending that time actually working human to human, coaching those agents to do those behaviors much, much more effectively. And so it's transformative, really. The cost savings that then
Is.
becomes a performance increase.
And I always see supervisors doing more of, by the way, is just being able to do more proactive outreach to customers that they might lose. So if AI could
Mhm.
create a list of here is customer behavior, it looks like they need some touch, like reach out, make
Yeah.
sure they're happy. So it's letting those supervisors who, arguably are the most experienced, the best people to do this, reach out and maybe keep those customers that might
Yeah.
be leaving and increasing, or I'm sorry, reducing churn. The other thing we do see is some of this is affecting like contact center supervisor to agent ratios because AI is making those supervisors more efficient so they can handle more agents. So a lot of my going on
Yes.
in the supervisor world, and we're going to be looking at that in our upcoming AI study that we launched in January.
Just quickly, I mean, we're seeing that as well. It's actually
Uh,
kind of becoming standard that with a mature Cresta deployment, we're seeing those organizations change what we call a span of control, which is that supervisor to agent ratio, by about 40%. It's really significant.
okay.
And so, if they had 10 agents to a supervisor before, it's going up to 14 because they're able to do a lot more with a lot less time.
So we'll see. Our research is not quite that good, but that makes sense though. I think it's a little more like it would be like the 10 would go to about 12 to 13, but you have, larger companies that are doing a lot more. I mean, this will include the
Yes.
smaller companies as well, and they're not doing quite as much on the supervisor side yet. So I think that makes sense with what you're seeing in your customer base for sure.
Yeah.
Um, so just a few more slides. We'll go into Q&A. So if you have any questions, please go ahead and ask them. But I wanted to just point out that, this is what we're seeing overall in our research on AI's impact on the business metrics for customer experience. So you can see we track revenue, customer ratings, operational costs, and agent efficiency. The green bar is just all companies in our research. Purple is our success group. So by definition, they're going to be better. And the blue is the non-success group. You can see they're doing very well in revenue, customer ratings, agent efficiency. The one thing I always like to point out, though, is operational costs. As we talked about at the beginning of the session today, successful companies are investing now. So their operational costs are not necessarily going down. You can ask them about a specific use case. And then that use case, they might say, yeah, we're saving money on either people or the applications we need or the capacity we need, whatever it might be. But then they have this successful use case and they just start doing another one and another one and it just snowballs. So companies are investing, they're buying more, they're trying more different technologies, and they're also hiring people in different areas. Like they might be hiring more data analysts, data scientists, more programmers to do some customization, perhaps, more security people to make sure everything's secure and compliant. Definitely more content managers to make sure that the knowledge is good. So, we're seeing, and as a result of all that, yeah, their revenue goes up because they're doing sales. The customer ratings are going up really well, and agents are becoming more efficient in what they can do.
Yeah.
So with that, Devin, I'm going to turn it over to you now to wrap up, and then we'll go to Q&A.
Yeah. Yeah, just last thought on that. I think the key is to focus on ROI, right? It's not only about reducing costs. It's not only about driving revenue or CSAT. You want to find the best balance to advance your business. And so you want to be getting ROI on the spend increase that you're seeing. And that sort of balance can look a lot of different ways depending on the company, the goals, the current processes, the technology, and all of those things. So it's not terribly surprising there. We typically are seeing our customers save money on operational costs and getting some of those other results. But the bottom line is ROI, solve a discrete problem. Don't throw AI at the wall.
Yeah, agreed.
Cool.
All right.
So I will just spend the last few minutes here since I've been talking at the audience, talking just a little bit about Cresta and what we do. Hopefully some of the things we talked about in terms of what our customers are doing and their results have piqued your interest. So I want to share a bit more about us and then invite you to come talk to us, see this stuff in action and see how we might be able to help your organization. But fundamentally at Cresta, we believe that we can unlock potential at every level of the contact center with human-centric AI. And what does that mean to us? It means deeply embedding AI into all human workflows. So that's your agents, that's your supervisors, that's your management, that's your analysts and data scientists. Everywhere AI can add value. And then we also want to enable AI to learn from human expertise. So like we talked about earlier, consuming conversations, learning what actually works within those conversations, and then helping make those things repeatable while also identifying the things that don't work and empowering you to take action on those things.
Yeah.
Then we want to automate the right things to optimize outcomes. And I think that's the key point. Don't try to automate 100% of your interactions. Identify the areas where you're going to get the most bang for your buck out of that automation, where customers are going to be happy. You're going to automate it very successfully and then move on to the next. So we absolutely advise a phased approach that's grounded in conversational data and intelligence before you just start deploying chatbots and building virtual agents and putting them out there into the world, because it can go terribly wrong, as we've seen in the press and in some of these high profile examples of Gen AI going wrong in the market, right? And last but not least, we want to enable collaboration between your virtual agents, your chatbots, your automation, and the humans that you do employ, so that they work together, they make each other better, and that the entire contact center is synergistic. So that's what really we're all about from a philosophical point of view. We do that with what we call a unified platform for human and AI agents. We sit on top of your existing technology stack, whether that's your CCaaS provider, your chat platform, your CRM, all of those things together. We take that data, bring it into our AI platform, and enable you to do many, many different things with it, whether that's empower agents in real time, whether that's get those insights on what customers care about and how they're changing, whether that's automate elements of quality management, coach more effectively, or automate a large percentage of your interactions. We do that all with a single platform where these tools work synergistically with one another and make each other more effective. So just a little bit about Cresta, hopefully not too much of a sales pitch, but I did want to show you what we have and invite you to come talk to us. See this in action. We'd love to show you how we can make an impact with AI in your contact center and ultimately help give your business a competitive advantage through that impact.
Well, that is great. Thank you so much, Devin and Robin. Really appreciate all that information. We do have a few questions to get to, but before we get to those, I do want to point everybody to the attachments tab. There you'll see a link to Metrigy's website, and we absolutely always love everybody to connect with us, so please do. You'll also see a link to the Cresta website, so please click on that and you get more information from Cresta. You'll also see a link to Cresta's customer results case study and a video featuring Snap Finance, along with From Today's AI to Tomorrow's Competitive Advantage. And that's a fireside chat with Accenture's Chief AI Officer. Okay, so as I said, we have a few questions. If anybody has a question, just go ahead and click on that question button and add it in, then we'll try to get to as many of these as we can. Okay, so first up, agentic AI. Devin, you mentioned this. Can you explain a little bit more about agentic AI and where it fits all into the scheme of things? We're kind of hearing a lot about it.
Yeah, it's definitely a buzzword that we're seeing used more and more and more right now. So just to clarify, it fits into pretty much everything that we talked about. Agentic AI is typically used to describe a form of generative AI where we're allowing the LLM to reason and then take action for us. And so in the next generation of virtual agents that use large language models, you are talking about agentic AI in those cases. With much of what we do from an agent assist and copilot perspective, you are talking about agentic AI. In that area I described around screen automation and AI taking action for the agent across systems, again, agentic AI. So there are a lot of different forms and flavors, but essentially it is generative AI and large language models that are trained to do very specific tasks that help make people more effective.
So evolutionary, more so than something brand new. Okay. Next question we have is around voice versus digital. Where should we get started with AI? Robin, you want to start there?
Yeah, I mean, my gut reaction with that is voice, simply because that's where more of your interactions are happening today is in voice. But it also depends on your company, your industry, the complexity of your interactions and things like that. If you're in an industry that serves, millennials who prefer text, then invest more in the digital, non-voice digital channels first.
Mhm.
That said, I mean, I just think that as you saw from some of the data, AI is making those agents so much more effective and efficient. And then you can also much more easily get your upsell, cross-sell. Like I kind of, I'm a little bit more, I don't know, favorable toward voice than digital. I don't know, Devin, you agree? Disagree? What do you think?
Yeah, I think in a vacuum, I would generally agree. There's more
Yeah.
volume there. The technology has advanced to the point where it can be really effective. And I think there's more white space from an automation perspective there, since that technology has really become effective at voice very recently due to like the latency constraints that we used to see. But I think for every business, you take an approach where you look at the business and you want to solve a problem or drive a specific outcome. I always just advise people thinking about deploying AI in the contact center to approach it from a use case and problem centric point of view. So we have customers where they saw an inefficiency in their chat channel, United Airlines, for example, and they really wanted to solve that inefficiency before moving on to some of the upside that voice would provide. And so we went that route with them. So it can look a little bit different business to business, but in a total vacuum, I would go voice as well, just because of the upside.
Now that makes sense too. Just looking at, I mean, we talk all about don't just deploy AI to deploy AI. I mean, look at your problem and opportunity. And if it's in like you said, with your example of United, if it's in a tech, then solve that problem. But if, all things being equal, I think you get your most bang for your buck in voice. Again,
Yeah,
all things.
yeah, I would agree.
Okay, I think we have time for one more. We sneak it in here quickly. Devin, you talked about using historical conversations to understand what's happening with customers. You said that humans still need to interpret the insights that AI provides and make good decisions. Wouldn't the ideal be to allow AI to actually take action and then eliminating the human in the middle?
Yeah, it's a good question. So I will caveat what I said with sometimes that would make sense. It depends on sort of what you're talking about, what the insight is, what the action is. There are certain things where I think if we have a really high confidence threshold, then it can be sort of rules based, like, making an adjustment to a routing rule or something like that based on something that's happening in a body of conversations. We could probably confidently allow AI to do that. But when I'm the way I was talking about it was as it relates to sort of business insights that are hidden in your customer conversations. I think in that case, AI can make it infinitely more efficient to land on those. It can make us much more effective at accurately identifying those insights. But I do think that somebody who has broader context outside of the world of those conversations does need to interpret that data and decide on the right action to take that's going to be most effective. And then AI can help take that action. But I don't think that human in the middle should go away anytime soon.
Okay. You agree. Okay, good. So with that, with that, we are just about at the top of our hour. And it does look like that's all the questions we have. So thank you, Robin and Devon, and thanks to all of you for your time and attention. Really appreciate your participation. Again, as a reminder, the webinar replay should be up on our channel shortly. If you found it valuable, please feel free to share it with your colleagues, and please take a moment to rate this webinar. We really do appreciate your feedback. If you haven't already, click those links in your attachments tab and do check back often. We post new content to our channel on a regular basis. Thank you very much for joining us today, and this concludes the webinar.
Thanks so much for having me.